My name is Bonny Hut, and in this program we ask questions of our artists that are sometimes a little unusual. So we hope you enjoy the show.
What is your favourite subject matter?
For me, I feel that it's very much my subject matter seems to always go back to this kind of sacred art theme, or exploring the idea of the divine, or the spiritual nature, which is something which has always been there since I was a child. And I guess probably from my upbringing, maybe just from what my soul wants to share, you know.
Well, that's a big subject. In a nutshell, I think what I have painted is my personal spiritual journey. I like to live the experience, journey within through meditation. I'm always seeking, always evolving, and when I do this journeying, I bring it forward and I paint during those times, and what I express is hopefully something that will help others, because by experiencing meditation, expressing meditation and expressing in the moment what you're experiencing, that's the best way to share with others the beauty of this spiritual practice, which is an art practice as well. It's a combination of two.
I guess my favourite subject matter would be visionary styled psychedelic landscapes. They're fairly open-ended, so I can draw in a range of influences and ideas. A lot of the subject matter comes from like going on long bushwalks and then quickly writing down or sketching ideas that come to me, or just before you go to sleep, things will pop into your head. And if I go with figurative stuff, then it's fairly closed, like whereas landscapes you can just throw in continual sources of inspiration.
I don't have a singular favourite subject matter. I like to diversify, but a common theme in my work, or a common subject matter in my work, is magic and mythology, particularly comparative mythology, universal archetypes and stories that seem to wind through many different cultures. The reason why I think these are important subjects to explore is because there's something ancient about them which taps into a deep part of our mind, that taps into our subconscious and our mythic memory, ancient symbols and archetypes that have been around for a very long time and so have a very deep resonance.
My favourite subject matter is quite a broad thing to talk about. It's quite cosmic in a lot of ways, and also cultural. So I think for the last 15 or 20 years or even more, I've delved into different cultural aspects of Genesis, like how we began, how our origins have evolved, and looked into stories apart from the conventional media story that we've been sold. So I'm looking into the mystery, and also for me the experience of connecting with other people and with nature. So a lot of my art is nature based. I have a lot of bees in my work, which relates to my journey into the honeybee medicine, which is part of my spiritual path. So for me, it's the place where the spiritual path meets creative lifestyle. So it's an absolute authenticity of bringing through the way that I live into my art. So this subject matter is like a seamless blend of those things coming into the story that I'm telling through each painting.
My favourite subject matter has to be portraits, because each face tells a story and has a story behind it, and the eyes are the window into that story. So of course I'm very interested in people, psychology, life, how different people reflect me and each other. So yeah, I think people have to be my favourite subject matter, and then of course I am very interested in animals as well.
But yeah, different mythic archetypes and magical archetypes, I think, touch something really deep that is not just mental but emotive for humans. The stories of our species.
Are you critical of your own work?
I am very critical of my own work. However, the criticism I have is generally constructive criticism. When I was at uni, they gave out tons and tons of non-constructive criticism, which I thought was very counterproductive. Why they did that, yeah, sure they had their reasons, but probably just part of the system. But yeah, constructive criticism is very helpful to yourself. Just simple negative criticism and just bashing your own self-esteem in your head actually just doesn't achieve anything.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I have a small voice of constructive criticism, but again I find that to step into that voice of criticism actually takes you out of the right brain and into the left brain, analysing. And while it is helpful to do that, often when I'm in my process of painting, I'll be completely in it, and then I'll put it on the wall and I'll allow that to sit there, and I might interact with it with the left brain thinking, oh, okay, so this needs this and this. So there is that level of constructive criticism, and also it's just enough to allow that evolution as a painter. You know, it makes me want to evolve, want to learn, want to, you know, master my medium. So that hopefully will take me into my whole life journey as an artist. But I do find that a lot of people who talk to me about creative process and basically say that they can't paint, or they can't, they don't have time because their inner critic has completely killed the process. And also I find that they might have too much left brain dialogue, which just, yeah, again, it just kills that freedom of imagination. It kills that that innocent sense of being.
I'm definitely critical of my own work, and I think it's the tool for an artist to get better and like pretty much see it as the only way that you can step outside from yourself and yeah, push yourself to excellence is by being harsh on yourself, unfortunately.
I'm highly critical of my own work, but I'm also very subjective to my own work. I believe that my own work can actually tell its own story, but I'm very critical of my work. I always try and learn and get better at what I do, and I look at other people's art and I appreciate art. Yeah, so I'm highly critical of my work. I just want it to be good.
I am very critical of my own work. I am usually not happy with 80% of my work. Yeah, I see my own mistakes and I see how I repeat my mistakes, and a lot of the things, even though I know things in my mind, I know about different rules and things, how things should be, I sometimes will continue repeating these things out of habit. So Yeah, sometimes I think with artists you just got to be easy on yourself, and I have to be kind to myself, and also sometimes just let a piece go and say it's finished, or feel that it's kind of completed and I don't need to, you know, worry about something which maybe no one else will notice except myself.
Yeah, definitely critical of my work. I think it's very necessary, because if you don't know that you can do better, then there's no real point in continuing painting because of the process. There's definitely that fine balance between being constructively critical of your work, but yeah, I think generally overall it's a pretty good thing.
I try to be critical of my own work sometimes, not overly critical, but I like to challenge myself to take my work further, to always improve and do better and go deeper and further. I think self-criticism is probably has more potential to be creative and effective than criticism from another in terms of the artist's response, because if you're criticising yourself, then obviously you can take it or you wouldn't do it, but in terms of bringing out things you haven't necessarily thought of, then the criticism of another is probably more valuable in that way, because you already know the merits of your work and the things you're pleased about with it, whereas things that could be better or could improve you might not consider in the same way as another person might. So it can be very useful for somebody else to criticise your work, but it often has to be done carefully, in terms of artists can be very sensitive about their work because they've poured so much of their being into it. So I think criticism can be really valuable and useful if it's done with sensitivity, and is particularly, I guess, if it's combined with compliments, with, like, if somebody says what they like about a work, what they appreciate about it, then the artist is probably more likely to be more open and less sensitive about criticism in terms of what could be improved, or what's not working so well, or what could be better. And I think also the idea is, the important thing with criticism is that it's not about that something's bad or wrong, because in art there's not really such a thing. It's more just like, how could it be better, or not even necessarily better, how could it go further, how could it go deeper, where can you take it, encouragement to push your limits is generally a creative thing, whether from self or another, as long as it's done with sensitivity and understanding.
Sometimes you need to look at art with other people's eyes. It's hard. I think art lies to you, your hand lies to you, your eyes lie to you, and the real fact behind it all, to be extremely critical, is understanding how to see through that lie. Looking at your art in different perspectives, looking at look at other people's artwork in different perspectives, and to give you a better understanding of how to create better art by being critical with yourself.
Are there unwritten principles of art that make some works more engaging than others?
As I started educating myself and actively seeking understanding of the world in various ways, sociopolitically, psychologically, spiritually, that drove me to explore various regions of study, and that has very much sourced me with a lot of different ideas and vocabulary.
Yeah, there's many secret things about the creative process and the sort of rules of art, I think. One of them is what I spoke about before, with having that balance of the emotions, having the balance of the vision and the technique, those three things. And also having something which is like a balance of opposing forces within an artwork or even within music or a film or whatever creative activity. If you have different elements which are opposing each other, yet you somehow manage to balance them, then when you arrive at a place of harmony, then there's something really engaging about that. You know, it's when you have maybe in some painting you have a really dark element and that's juxtaposed by something really light, and that space between it creates kind of a tension, and that tension can be exciting in a way. And that also can be applied to things like laws of color, laws of contrast, you know, the balance of tone and things like that. So all of these things are important, and also really important is the composition, you know, how a picture, if it's a two-dimensional object, how it's been composed, and something which you can see from a distance, it works, and when you look up close it works, and you know, and also observing from nature, using nature as kind of a model and looking at anatomy and things, you know, having that background to support the work, it really helps to make a stronger piece of work.
It's the unwritten principles of art that make some works more engaging than others really come down to that substance within the painting. Perhaps it's a beautiful use of colour, or the language of the painting itself really could be quite mysterious. It could be anything. It could be unique to the painting. But I always know that when I see something I love, it's not explainable. It's just, it evokes something within me that I think, wow, you know. And so maybe that is unexplainable. Maybe that is just the mystery. The beauty of that resonance that strikes a chord within, and perhaps everyone's unique, that unique ability, so that I might have it with a completely different painting than you do. And that's beautiful, you know, that diversity comes down to the language of our own experience through our creative eyes and our cultural perspectives as well. So, yeah.
Because I've had to teach so much, I've had to try and mentally figure out how I do things, which I had no idea how I did them previously, to try and pass them on. So I do believe that there are rules, loosely speaking, in art, just as there are rules in music and other types of art, with regards to principles of creating mood, which is sometimes you can do that with having a dominant tone, having a dominant temperature, having a dominant color, principles of design, you know, which of course include a design is your ideas and your composition.
I definitely believe in art there's certain motives that ring true to people. There's like certain archetypes built inside us that bring on a human response. I think when things are beautiful, I think people really respond to that kind of, definitely that kind of artwork. Yeah, they're the common themes that run through it, but it could be a dark kind of beautiful. But yeah, I think it's when people have that feeling, they've seen it before, or a deep understanding of it. Yeah, it just kind of rings true with them. A little bit shocking sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely compositional tricks and different interplays between colours that can excite people without them realising why. It's fun to play around with these tricks once you know them, but also to steer away from them deliberately as well.
What do you think of the following famous stereotype of the starving artist?
The old archetype of the starving artist. That's an interesting question because it brings up a lot for me in my journey. I guess the fact that I've basically been very stubborn on my path as being an artist, and also raising my 2 boys, who are now 17 and 12, on not much money with little support financially. Luckily we were never starving because I'm a really good cook and can grow my own food and I'm quite resourceful, but I've really had to put a lot of energy into that and be very dedicated to my art practice as well. And it's lucky that I'm stubborn because it's brought me to where I am now, and I probably wouldn't be sitting in front of this camera talking had I have given up. But of course, many times along the way, there's been those challenges that have come to the absolute like epiphany within me of learning how to be practical with my art, of also trusting that my dream and will blossom and will allow us to flourish as a family, which we are. So I live fairly meagerly, like off the grid. I choose to live in a certain way which holds my ethics and holds space for my children to grow, which they are now, and I'm teaching them the values of this creative lifestyle as well. So perhaps the days of the starving artist could be over, because I want to talk about the social media and the digital age. And also the exciting thing is now is that our art can be reproduced digitally for products like clothes or prints or whatever we can think of to make and manufacture, hopefully in a very sustainable way. So, but we have these options now, whereas even 15 years ago with my paintings, they were just all in the hallway, and the only people that really saw them were people who came over to visit. And of course now you put a painting on Facebook or social media and it goes out into the world and people can see it, view it, comment on it, interact with it. And I find that that's a very exciting thing for me. It creates culture, which I love. And so hopefully if we're smart, we can create financial options for artists, but only if we do that in a sustainable way and we're really looking at the ethics of the whole industry, and I think that's very important.
It's definitely a stereotype for a reason. I think like anybody, any entrepreneur, you gotta make a lot of sacrifices to build the momentum to actually create the reality that you're trying to create. There's not a lot of support in Australia as far as the arts go. Like it's respected, but you gotta eat. But yeah, it all comes down to passion. Like to be able to create every day, like from the heart, is gonna be, you know, way more worth it than, you know, helping build someone else's dream. Like it's why we're painters. It's why we're creators.
I think the starving artist meme is unfortunately pretty prevailing. It depends on the country that people are living in, I think. Australia's got a pretty strange scene. It can be pretty conservative over here. So I think emerging artists in fringe genres can have a pretty hard time, and maybe that feeds into the whole starving artist thing. That could be from the perception that most people have of artists over here, kind of as fringe dwellers or doll bludgers. Whereas over in Europe and America, I think the scenes are more established and artists garner a bit more respect.
We hope you've enjoyed this series. This is the final episode of Season 2, and this show was brought to you by Metro Television. Don't forget to check out the Visionary Art Network Australia's website for more art and artists. visionaryart.net.au. Being very politically incorrect. The politically incorrect show.
Thank God for that.
Damn.
My parents were definitely supportive of my art in my early growing up. They used to buy me books and, oops, stop there. Bit of wind.
I think I just had a little bit too much caffeine. So
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that.
okay, retake, sorry.
We want to redo that one because.
Actually, can we cut for a second? I'm sorry, this it's okay. This stroke thing going on. It's the chemtrails.